My perfect life shattered in an instant. My wife, once my everything, was cheating with our neighbor. Hidden cameras captured every betrayal. The pain was unbearable, but rage fueled my need for revenge. I confronted them and meticulously planned my retribution. This isn't just a story of infidelity. It's a tale of deception, heartbreak, and cold-blooded vengeance. Witness the shocking truth as justice is served in the most unexpected ways. My marriage with Kay had hit rock bottom. We were intimate once a month, sometimes not at all if she was mad at me. When we first got married, we used to be intimate 4 to 5 times a week. It was one of the reasons I started dating her. She was amazing in bed. Other reasons? She was cute, slim, fit, flexible, and loved sex. Now she's not cute, not slim, not fit, and not flexible. She seems to hate sex. Kay has 2 younger sisters, Katie and Kathy. All 3 sisters were known for being very attractive and fun in bed. I thought I was lucky because Kay chose to settle down with me. We got married 12 years ago after I got her pregnant in college. We were seniors and in love, already talking about marriage. Sally was born 5 months after our wedding, and Kevin came a year and a half later. Both kids were spoiled by their mom, aunts, and grandparents. I despised Kay's parents. They thought I was beneath Kay because I couldn't buy her all the luxuries they felt she deserved. They never worked except for some charities and lived off inheritances. A few years ago, they sold their last inherited property, so I knew they were running out of money. No one else knew this because I had checked the property records many years ago. Both of Kay's sisters have 2 kids each. Katie is married to Ron, who runs 5 dry cleaning stores for his dad. Kathy is married to Mark, who inherited a house and some money from his grandparents. Mark owns a marketing firm, but I've never seen him work or know where his office is. Both sisters, like Kay, are fun at parties but useless when it comes to work. 2 years ago, while sitting in my home office, upset because I had to take care of my needs in the shower that morning, I took a hard look at my life. Almost no sex, a nagging wife who doesn't work, 2 disrespectful kids who take after their mother, a job I hate because the company treats us like servants, a house near her parents where it snows for months. I grew up in the South and hate the cold. I drive a 10-year-old car, which was Kay's during college until she wrecked it and traded in my car for a new one. I can't wait for my car to be fixed. We have payments on a new car for Kay, which I'm not allowed to drive unless I want verbal abuse and 0 sex from Kay. We have payments on a house that's too big because Kay needs to live near her family. We also have payments for a small pedigree dog that needs meds to survive because it's so inbred, a maid twice a week because housework makes Kay too tired for sex. This increase in sex lasted 2 months, but the maid is still here. A clubhouse and spa membership for Kay to hang out with friends and sisters, and weekly payments for new clothes and hairstyling for Kay's social obligations. There are payments for tennis lessons for both kids and Kay. They all suck at tennis and never play. The kids would stay high 24 hours a day if they could. We pay for 3 annual vacations, 1 in winter with her family, skiing, which I hate because of my bad knee and dislike of the cold, 1 in spring where they shop in a big city, and 1 in summer to a beach. I'm not invited because it's for bonding time with her sisters. We spend Christmas and Thanksgiving at her family's houses. My retired parents live in a small beach bungalow in the South, which Kay says is too small for visits. I'm surrounded by people who mock me because I don't have a family inheritance, a job with long hours, and a wife and kids who don't appreciate my hard work. Lastly, my wife is cheating on me. I didn't stumble upon this information accidentally. A few months before reevaluating my life, I decided to find out why Kay was content without sex. Either she lost interest or was getting it elsewhere. I decided I needed a hobby. We live in a digital age, so it's easy to get spyware, recorders, cameras, storage, Bluetooth, wireless, and monitoring software. The first thing I did was put a recorder in my wife's car, tied to the car battery for unlimited life. I placed a Bluetooth station in the garage so it would download to my home PC whenever she parked. I also put cameras in every room except the kids' rooms. All footage downloaded to my home computer. Using some early footage, I quickly learned my wife's phone code. Around 3 a.m., I opened her phone and installed monitoring software. Now I could listen to all her phone calls and see all her messages. I upgraded our home internet to business class, allowing me to access my home computer from anywhere using my phone. 2 weeks later, I sat in my home office after everyone went to bed. I listened to the recording from Kay's car. "Can you meet this Thursday at my place? 10 works for me. I can't wait to ride you hard," she said. "Me too, babe. Love you," was the reply. Hearing this felt like a punch to the gut. I turned off my computer and took the dog for a walk. I was furious. I had expected the worst, but hearing it was painful. I felt only anger, not sadness. I went home and tried to sleep, but didn't rest well. The next morning, I looked hard at my life. Almost no sex, a cheating wife, a lazy wife, and disrespectful kids. I had to escape this nightmare. First, I needed to find out who the guy was and get proof. Why hadn't I heard any conversations from her phone? She must have another phone. I needed to search her car. I waited until she was asleep. After working all day, I waited until everyone was asleep. I spent an hour searching her car and almost gave up, thinking it might be hidden in the house. Then I saw a glint inside the main air vent in the front console. I pulled on the air vent and it popped off. Inside was a phone velcroed to the back of the vent. Very sneaky. I opened the phone and tried the code from her other phone. It worked. I installed the same monitoring software, put the phone back, and replaced the vent cover. I went to my home office and looked through the incoming results. There were lots of texts, 2 years' worth until recently when the messages had been deleted but were recoverable. The monitoring software recovered them. Many of the messages were between the 3 sisters comparing their lovers' performances in bed. They even discussed sharing partners. My wife's latest lover was my daughter's soccer coach, figures. The guy is a jerk and married. Katie wanted the grocery boy on the football team, but Kay and Kathy scolded her. They said unmarried guys were too clingy and had nothing to lose. Mom would be upset if she broke the rules. Their mom had rules for cheating. Kathy was sleeping with a mechanic who had been with all 3 sisters because he had a big tool. Their mom had tried him first. Kay had slept with Ron and Mark, but infrequently. The sisters encouraged Kay to sleep with them again to keep them in line. I needed an exit strategy. The following week was tough, pretending I was unaware. I complained about the house or laundry until Kay argued with me. She stonewalled me in the bedroom. I made a note to restart arguments every few weeks and moved into the guest room. A week later, I had a plan. I wanted out of my job and marriage. I wanted all the money, no alimony, and didn't want the kids. I wanted the in-laws to suffer and Kay to be miserable. I wanted a new start and a chance at a real family. I realized I had been a fool. Hard-working, devoted husbands were not valued by her or her family. Her parents, sisters, and their husbands were toxic. They only saw opportunities to get what they wanted. If something went wrong, they lied and manipulated. I came up with a plan. First, I needed to get the 2 sisters divorced and leverage my in-laws. When I was at Katie's for dinner, I took close-up photos of clocks and smoke detectors. At Kathy's, I did the same. At their mom's house, I photographed more. I had replaced all the smoke detectors a year ago with newer models. Finding an exact duplicate for the doorbell cover was hard, but eBay helped. Once I installed cameras in each house, I had a pool party and invited everyone over. While they swam, I borrowed their house keys and installed monitoring software on their phones. I knew their phone codes from recordings. During the party, I dropped a 10-pound bag of ice. Katie said, "Are you completely useless? Go get more ice." I apologized and left. On my way to the store, I stopped at their houses and made replacements, installing wireless boxes in each attic. I connected them to their wireless networks. I also made copies of their house keys. 2 days later, I got video proof. Kathy was with the mechanic. They stripped quickly and jumped into bed. Watching them was like seeing hyenas on National Geographic. When he was done, he lay on the bed, breathing hard. Kathy tried to climb on him again, but he pushed her away, saying, "No more. I have to go before my wife gets worried." Kathy said, "Oh, come on. One more time before you go, mechanic. I need to perform tonight or she'll know." He took a quick shower, got dressed, and said, "Thanks, baby. See you next week." He put in his phone code right in front of the camera. The next Thursday, while they started, I quietly went through the sliding back door and installed monitoring software on his phone, which was in his pants pocket in the living room. Things got more interesting. The next day, at Katie's place, her lover was her uncle, along with her aunt. All 3 got undressed. The aunt was beautiful for her age, in her late 50s, but with a body that looked 40, with an hourglass shape and flat stomach. She looked sexier next to Katie. Watching them was like seeing a crocodile eat a baby hippo on National Geographic. A few minutes later, the aunt got up, took a shower, and changed the bedding. Then, in my own bedroom, my wife was with our neighbor's wife, Cheryl. Cheryl was a tall, hot redhead with a matronly yet hourglass figure. Though I prefer thinner women, she was attractive. They came into the bedroom, kissing. This time I saw the whole video and actually enjoyed it. After a short cuddle, Cheryl took a shower and left. My front door camera showed Cheryl walking home gingerly and bow-legged. Then I got a huge surprise. Ron and Mark came into Katie's bedroom and undressed. I wondered who they would tag team today. After what I saw, I decided never to shake hands with them again. It got weirder. At Katie's parents' house, I watched the video quickly, skipping to parts where they were in the bedroom. Katie's uncle was there with his miniature tool, screwing Katie's mom while Katie's dad watched from a chair. This seemed to run in the family. After both men finished, Kay's mom used something that looked like an industrial jackhammer. It sounded like it could shake the house. This was easier and weirder than I expected. I wondered if Morgan Freeman could narrate these videos. I needed to remove the video recorders before sending any videos. Another pool party, another dropped bag of ice. Katie said, "Well done, numbnuts. Does he have any nuts?" Kathy added, "Aren't they in your purse?" Kay and the others snickered. Sally mumbled, "Mom, why does he have to be so embarrassing?" Ron and Mark suggested asking for help with heavy things next time. Kevin yelled, "Geez, Dad, man up!" They all laughed as Karen told me to get more ice. With my excuse to leave, I retrieved the 3 alarm clocks and installed new cameras. I returned with the ice in the right amount of time. I sent the videos of Kathy and the mechanic to Kathy and Mark. I sent the video of Katie with her aunt and uncle to Katie and Ron. The messages said, "You shouldn't mess with another woman's husband." The sisters complained to their mother-in-law, who stepped in and smoothed things over for the sake of the children. She used the usual excuses. "It was a mistake. She only loves you." To push things further, I sent Ron and Mark a copy of their playtime tape, saying the video would come out if they weren't divorced for adultery within the year. I also told them our in-laws were almost broke, with a second mortgage, no other properties, 0 savings, and no Social Security since they never worked. This was all true due to my hobby. Ron and Mark filed for divorce on grounds of adultery. They had the papers served within a week, using the same attorney. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were heartbroken. 6 months later, the divorces were final. Ron and Mark's wealth was a lie. Ron was just an employee working for his dad. Ron's dad paid for the house as a wedding gift, so his dad's name was on the title. Ron thought he'd eventually own it when his dad passed away since he was the only child. Both cars were company cars. Ron had been pretending to be a big business tycoon, but he was just a manager of a few dry cleaners for his dad and young stepmother. Ron's dad remarried after Ron's mom married a wealthier man. Mark was a little better off. He got some inheritance and a trust fund from his grandfather. He thought they would be off limits in a divorce, but they were the household's only income, so it was considered communal income. The divorce was tough, with fights over every little asset. Mark and Kathy used up all their savings on lawyers. The trust fund was split, with 1/3 for Mark and 2/3 for Kathy. It wasn't much. Everyone knew Mark's house was his parents'. He had told everyone he bought it from them when they retired and moved to a warmer climate, but he hadn't. His parents still owned it. My in-laws and Kathy begged Mark's parents to let their grandkids stay in the big house for free. Mark's parents had basically disowned him when they retired, due to money issues just before Mark's wedding. Mark had threatened to move into their town, so his dad made a deal. Mark could live in the house for free if he stayed out of their lives forever. After Kathy's last conversation with Mark's parents, they were considering letting them stay, but my big-mouth mother-in-law messed it up. She threatened to sue if they didn't let their grandchildren stay in the house for free. Mark's dad told her she could buy the house and gift it to their daughter, then hung up. The house went up for sale 2 days later. Mark didn't own a marketing firm. The only marketing firm he worked for fired him for sexual harassment at his first job out of college. A week later, my mother-in-law got a night in jail and a restraining order for attacking the mechanic's wife. She tried to attack the poor woman and threatened to kill her for what she had done. She slapped the mechanic's wife in a coffee shop. Bad move, as the mechanic's wife punched her hard, breaking her nose and giving her black eyes. The coffee shop cameras caught the whole incident. The mechanic's wife asked my mother-in-law why she thought she sent the videos. My mother-in-law replied, "He said you weren't good in bed. Did you think you could keep that big meat to yourself when we were happy to let him have any position he wanted?" I decided to help the mechanic's wife by sending her the video with Kathy, many trophy pics on his phone, and all the cheating texts. The mechanic was divorced within 3 months. At a family gathering, Ron and Mark, both drunk, complained about their divorces to me. Mark said, "I only got married and had kids because I thought Kathy's parents were rich and my dad would undisown me. Now I have almost nothing. I lost all my savings and most of my trust fund goes to my stupid ex-wife. My 2 sisters are going to get everything from my dad." Ron added, "I married that bitch so my dad would give me the dry cleaning businesses. Instead, he made me a store manager, saying once I learned the ropes, he'd put me over all the stores. It never happened. He blamed me for causing the store I ran to lose money. Worse, his new wife is having a baby. I don't think he'll leave me anything when he dies." The sisters were busy trying to find wealthy husbands, but they got fooled by posers. Not all that glitters is gold. Both daughters and their kids moved back in with their parents, who hated each other. My mother-in-law said, "Do we have to put up with those 2 bitches and their fat, stupid loser kids?" Both sisters complained about who was worse to live with, the old skank or the old Moby Dick. With the sisters divorced, my little hobby was paying off. Life at home improved. Over the phone to her sisters, my wife actually called me the biggest breadwinner of the 3 husbands. Of course, it lasted 5 seconds before they said all 3 of us were losers. And I was just the least loser right now. They all thought that was hilarious. I got a break from my mother-in-law while she was recovering from nose surgery. When it healed, her nose was bigger and crooked. My boss, John, owned the company I worked for. Our software managed inventory, part builds, bill of materials, and engineering into one product. I coded most of it. Did I mention I hated John? We were good friends when we started, but as the company grew, he ignored me. He became a jerk, focused on making more money. Our yearly bonuses, which started at $16,000 per employee, were now less than $2,000. With inflation, low raises, shrinking bonuses, and rising healthcare costs, the longer I worked there, the less I made. My surveillance hobby was working well, so I decided to expand into John's office, his home, and his secretary's apartment. His secretary, Sasha, was rumored to be sleeping with him after hours. It wasn't hard to get access to their homes. I copied Sasha's apartment key during a management meeting and got John's house key from her key ring. Once I installed the recorders and monitoring software in their office PCs, I found out Sasha lived alone. Setting up Sasha's apartment was easy. I installed video and voice recorders and monitored her workspace. I knew her and John's phone access codes. She kept her phone in her purse during meetings, and John often left his phone in the conference room. Phone monitoring software was done. They were meeting every Thursday in her apartment. I got video of everything. Sasha and I got along well at the office. I wasn't scared of John and wasn't trying to get with her. The other women at work were cold towards Sasha. She dressed professionally and wore long skirts. I thought she was overweight, but the videos showed she worked out hard and was very fit. Her wardrobe, including large t-shirts on weekends, was designed to avoid attention. She wore little makeup, which I respected. John was a 60-second man, so I only had to listen to the audio for a couple of minutes. After 4 weeks, I quit my job. I had built their software and decided to create and sell an ad sales module with predictive planning. I knew John would ask for my help with current projects. One part of the code hadn't been modified in years and had gotten corrupted. There were no backups. The missed backups looked like an innocent mistake, which it was. I started working from home. 2 weeks later, John begged me to come back. I negotiated a contract rate double my previous hourly rate. John planned to use me short-term, but I knew my new salary with overtime would quadruple my old salary. I rewrote the source code from memory, improving a few things and adding requested features from sales. The other modules didn't work perfectly with the new module, so changes were needed. The new features made my sales module work better. Customers loved the new features in John's software and my new sales and planning software that integrated with it. After 30 days, my contract was extended indefinitely. The following week, my wife got a letter from an attorney. Her great-uncle had died and left a trust that provided $4,000 a month. If she had a child and named it after him or his deceased wife, the trust would increase to $20,000 a month. The lawyers had us sign paperwork and gave us our first check for $4,012. The next would be deposited into our joint account on the first of each month. Kay was all smiles, talking about quitting birth control and having another baby for that $20,000 a month. Once we got home, I told her we needed to talk. She was so happy she didn't notice my tone. We sat at the kitchen table. I had to tell her to quit texting on her phone. I said, "I quit my job a year ago and things are not going well. I have been using my earnings to hire programmers to get code done." Katie looked shocked. "What? And you're just telling me now?" I explained. "I quit to start my own software company. It's working, but it's taking longer than expected." Katie replied, "Well, that doesn't matter now. We have lots of money and we're going to get more." She jumped up to give me a big kiss, but I stopped her and said, "I am not going to have sex with you ever again." She saw the cold look in my eyes and turned red, screaming, "What?" I repeated, "I am not going to be with you ever again." She yelled, "Who do you think you are? You little nobody!" I raised my hand to stop her and showed her my phone. I pulled up her sex video. "Remember when your sisters got those sex tapes from the mechanic's wife? You and I got one too. I deleted your copy so you never knew, but I kept mine just in case." I showed her the video. She was shocked, eyes wide open, mouth hanging open, arms limp at her sides. I told her I had met with the mechanic's wife and pleaded with her to let us reconcile. I told her I let her have sex with other women because I couldn't fulfill that need. For a moment I saw a bit of compassion in Kay's eyes, but it quickly vanished. "That's past history. What do you mean you won't have sex with me?" I yelled. "We haven't had sex in over a year. Why do you think I want to start now?" Kay looked confused and said, "Because of the money, dear. $20,000 per month is a lot of money. Don't be mad at me. I've been really stressed. It's all behind us now. Please, babe, I love you. Can't we just forget about the past and look forward to the future and our new baby?" "No," I said. "You have treated me horribly since we got married." The mean wife was back. "Listen to me, you worthless fool. We are going to have sex and make a baby or I will divorce you. Do you understand?" She jabbed her finger in my face. "I'm also not going to share the $4,000 per month either." I relaxed and calmly said, "Fine by me. I'll be filing for divorce due to adultery. Can you give me the phone number of the attorney we just visited? They seemed good. I'm sure I can find a good divorce attorney with their firm." To her credit, she calmed down instantly, realizing I had the advantage. She sat down and spoke calmly. "It was only sex with her. I don't love her. I only love you. There's no need for us to give up on all the years we've been together." "Well," I said, "I'm just catching up on the new rules of our relationship. You know, the lying and cheating. That was a mistake. I love you and want us back the way we were." "I agree," I said. "I think we should go up to our bedroom and have sex right now." Kay was excited. "I knew you loved me." "No, I was lying. Did you see where I looked you straight in the eye and you believed me? Interesting to see it from the other side, isn't it? Don't play with our love. If you ever really loved me, you would try to make this work." "All right, you're right. I will work harder on our relationship going forward." "I knew you loved me. You want to make it up to me in the bedroom?" "No, I'm never going to have sex with you ever again." Kay looked surprised. "But you just said you would work harder on our relationship." "Yes, I did. I was lying. I'm seeing how this got easier for you to do. The more you do it, the easier it gets." Kay looked like she was about to cry. "I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. Do you really mean it?" "No, not at all." I lied again. "Wow, lying makes communicating with someone who trusts you so much easier. I also have been lying all these years. My parents are billionaires, and we never have to worry about money ever again. I'll never leave you, and you'll have an unlimited allowance for the rest of your life." Kay, with her bottom lip hanging out, said, "Not funny. Isn't it hard to have a conversation with someone who lies right to your face to get what they want?" I said I was sorry. "I won't ever lie to you again. Will you stop lying to me?" "I will stop lying to you." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I love you with all my heart. Your kids love you. My sisters and parents think you're the best husband in the world." I'm not so sure I believe you. They seemed pretty disrespectful the other day. No, you know that isn't true. They were just kidding. In fact, let's have a party this weekend so you can see how much everyone adores you. Well, that does sound fun. Is Mark and Ron going to be there too? Sure, the whole family. Is Saturday afternoon okay with you? Sure, honey, that would be great. You're not lying to me again, are you? No. Having everyone over should be a very memorable experience. Great. A big party for my loving husband to show how much everyone loves him. She came around the table and gave me a big hug while I stayed sitting. She even kissed me on the top of my head. Lucky me. I had been sleeping in the guest room for over a year. I had installed a deadbolt shortly after I moved in. I always kept my room locked. Around 5 a.m., I was awoken by the sound of an alarm clock going off in the house. Shortly after, someone picked the simple lock on the door and tried to get into my room. The deadbolt worked. I guess someone thought they could slip into my bed early in the morning and take advantage of me. Kay called all the relatives, and listening to the phone calls was hilarious. Kay had to bribe her sisters to come over by promising them some of her $4,000. Ron and Mark were easy. She promised to have a threesome with them if they came and behaved. Her parents didn't like it until they heard about the $20,000 a month. Dad was already planning with my wife how they could get rid of me after the baby was born to take the money. What hurt was watching Kay having to convince Sally and Kevin, my own children, to be nice to me. She mentioned money, and both reluctantly agreed. Not liking their attitude, she threatened to take away all their allowance, phones, home computers, and any future car if they messed this up. They smiled and said they would be perfect children for their dad. Don't worry, it didn't hurt too bad. 7 years ago, I started thinking of them as angry stepchildren, which was pretty much how they treated me and how much authority I had over them. You would have thought I won the lottery. Everyone was so nice, but I could see them all grinding their teeth with fake smiles. Since everyone was being so polite, I decided to be polite too. I mentioned how lovely my kids were behaving, saying they didn't even seem like my own kids. To Kathy, I mentioned how I had run into her boss the other day, coming out of a downtown hotel. He seemed to be in a hurry. I had intentionally run into him and talked to him for 20 minutes about programming opportunities. Kathy had to hide in the hotel lobby bathroom when she came out of the elevators because she saw me talking to the man she had just slept with. And yes, he is married with 4 children and a loving wife. Kathy has been trying to attach herself to a wealthier man, but they're just using her for fun. Ron and Mark were hanging out near the bar as usual. I asked them what they were doing socially now that they were single. They discussed a few bars and clubs. When they mentioned one place, I scowled. They asked why. I mentioned that single guys at my work said never to go there because there were 2 divorced guys who liked to get straight guys drunk and take advantage of them. Both guys turned white. Yes, I had bugged their new apartment. I told my father-in-law that I thought I saw him and his brother downtown at a restaurant with his brother's niece. The bartender said her name was Ainsley. The look on my mother-in-law's face could have melted steel. I had a voice recording of the father-in-law and his brother talking. Ainsley is a trans woman with a very big secret, and they met her in a hotel room later that day. My father-in-law suddenly needed to refresh his drink, even though it was full. I guess he never discussed his dates with Ainsley with his wife or the cost of Ainsley's time. Finally, my mother-in-law and I were alone by the pool. No one dared interrupt. I said, "Isn't it nice to see everyone back together again?" She replied, "Yes, it is. I'm glad Ron and Mark stayed friends and became roommates after the divorce." By the look in her eye, I knew she suspected that Ron and Mark were now more than friends. Knowing her, she had probably been with both of them at the same time. I think Katie and Kathy will bounce back and find someone soon. If not, the kids will eventually be gone and they'll only be in their mid-40s. Yes, they still have a lot of life ahead of them, she said with a pained look. Public divorces due to adultery, 2 kids, and working as a waitress and a secretary left little time for romance or finding a good guy willing to take on the burden of 2 kids. Plus, at least 10 more years until all the grandkids were out of her house. My kids seem to be doing better in school this year. I think Kevin is going to make a couple of B's and the rest C's. He will be the genius among all your grandchildren. We should do something special to inspire all the grandkids to try harder at school. Yes, that sounds best. Maybe a party at your house for all the grandkids. A pool party. Is the pool still working? I haven't seen the cover off in years. I knew they had emptied the pool years ago to cut expenses. Or the lake would be nicer, she added, with a harder look in her eyes. Your husband seems to be doing well. I saw him and his brother having lunch with your niece at the hotel restaurant downtown. They were having so much fun I didn't want to interrupt, and I was late getting back to the office. I took a picture when I saw them. Do you want to see? Yes, I would. I didn't get a chance to say hi to my brother-in-law's niece. I showed her the picture. It showed a very young, thin girl in a red dress sitting in a booth with two elderly gentlemen. My father-in-law was sitting across from her, his brother sitting against the wall between the girl and my father-in-law. If you had a sharp eye, you would notice a pair of red high-heeled shoes under the table, which could just be seen under the tablecloth. But there were no feet in the shoes, and my father-in-law's napkin was suspiciously high off his lap. It took me 3 hours on Photoshop to erase the feet in the shoes and raise the napkin. After almost a minute of staring at the photo, she finally looked up. She looked me in the eye and said quietly, "She does look so pretty. I haven't seen her in so long. I wish she had more time to visit. Can you send me that photo? It is such a good picture of her." Her eyes were full of hate now. I glanced around and saw everyone was watching us. My mother-in-law was being quiet, something she never did. She spent every moment telling others how to live and criticizing them for not listening to her. So I guess Kay has told you about her little windfall. Yes, I think it's a wonderful chance for you two to get ahead. You should have another baby to secure your financial future, especially with your job not doing well. There it was, that evil look in her eyes. Well, Kay and I have had some problems these last few years. If we can overcome them, we'll see. You know she loves you, and we are talking about a lot of money. I could almost see her drooling as she said the word money. I hope you will encourage her to do whatever it takes to make our marriage work. With a sneer, she replied, "Don't take too long. She has other options." And there it was. I leaned back in my chair. Other options? Her sisters are on record for adultery in court, so that's out. You can't conceive a child, so that's out. If my wife tries to divorce me, I'll sue for adultery. I have proof of her affairs, so that's out. If she gets pregnant by someone else, a DNA test will show it's not mine, so that's out too. And if anything happens to me, my lawyer has all the evidence, so that's out. If anyone sues me, I'll cut off the money to whoever is suing, so that's out. Are you willing to risk everything for something that will fail and leave you homeless with no retirement? She was speechless. Her mouth hung open, twitching. I could see everyone at the party staring with their mouths open. I smiled, and my mother-in-law looked like a fish gasping for air. I thought she might be having a stroke. Finally, in a strangled voice, she said, "Can you fetch me another soda, please?" I grabbed her glass and went into the kitchen. I looked out the window and saw my mother-in-law talking rapidly to her husband and daughters. By their scared looks, she was definitely not happy. She saw me looking and froze mid-sentence. Her husband and daughters saw her stare, and they all turned to look at me. My mother-in-law abruptly stood up, grabbed her husband's hand, and left the backyard through the side gate. The three sisters came into the house and yelled at me for being so uncaring to their mother, constantly asking what I had said to her. My mother-in-law never spoke to me directly again. On to the next step. Sasha, a beautiful woman 5 and 8 inches tall. Sasha was an ex-wife of a husband who cheated on her. I checked the court documents. In my original plan, I hadn't considered Sasha, but after hearing her talk with an old friend, saying she hated John but needed the money, I decided I needed a new salesperson for my upcoming company. Her talents were being underutilized. Any woman who worked so hard to hide such a great figure was someone I wanted to know better. I took photos of my boss and Sasha walking arm in arm out of a downtown hotel. No kissing, just looking intimate. I didn't want embarrassing photos of Sasha. I sent the pictures to John's wife. I'd never seen John and his wife together, so I didn't know what she would do. When John got home, she showed him the pictures and told him, "You know the rules. Never in the house, no children, nothing public." John argued, but eventually gave in. In the end, she was tough to crack. I needed to up the embarrassment. That Monday, John fired Sasha. I happened to be waiting outside when she was leaving. "Hi, Sasha. What's wrong?" Visibly upset, she replied, "Nothing. I just got fired." Running to catch up to her, I said, "Sorry to hear that. Can you stop walking for a second? I have something you will want to hear." Sasha stopped and stared at me. What do you want? I want to offer you a job. Doing what? Sales at my software company? I didn't know you owned a software company. Wait, how did you know I was going to be fired today? Very sharp lady. I looked her in the eye for a few moments. A little birdie told me, let's just say I am keeping a close eye on my current competitor and don't want to miss an opportunity to pick up talent. You still work for John? Does he know you are doing this? No, and I would like to keep it that way. How much? Same salary, plus 20% more. But you have to pay for your own apartment. I saw your apartment listed in the books. I don't want you to feel like there are any strings attached. Okay. Deal. When do I start? I smiled. You're already on the clock. I'm going to get my car and pick you up. Go around the corner so John can't see you. I'm sure he's watching right now. I walked away, and when I peeked back, she was looking up at John's office, giving him the middle finger. I picked up Sasha around the corner, and we headed back to my house and home office. On the way, I gave her an update about my marriage. When I told her I hadn't had sex with my wife in 2 years, Sasha asked if I was joking. Not since I found out she was cheating on me, I said. I told Sasha I wasn't going to be married much longer and that I needed help to get the company from John. I asked her to keep it a secret. She smiled warmly. Damn, I could melt in those brown eyes. When Sasha and I walked in, Katie was there to greet me. She growled, "Who is this?" "This is my new head of sales and marketing. She will be working with me out of the office for now." "Any problems, Katie?" "No problems." I nudged Sasha to get her moving. Head of sales and marketing was something she hadn't expected. I set up Sasha at a second desk next to mine, which I had bought 4 weeks ago. We spent the rest of the day going over my new software. Sasha knew the old software and was amazed at how much easier and faster mine worked. She was very impressed with the sales module. Over the last 2 years, using cheap programming labor and many hours on my part, I had rewritten all the programs from John's company. My software was 10 times faster, smaller, and more intuitive, with all the features John thought were too expensive. I gave Sasha 3 leads who were already using my sales software to demo my new main software. After a couple of hours, she had appointments for the next week. Before Sasha went home, I told her I was going to have a conversation with Kay in the kitchen and wanted her to overhear. "I may need your help tonight." I left the office door completely open and called Kay into the kitchen. "We need to talk." "Okay. I'm not going to have sex with you, but we are getting along so well. I need you and your sisters to sleep with a guy." "What? My sisters and I are not some hookers. You can't tell us who to sleep with." "What if I promise to give you a divorce if you do what I ask? You could marry someone else and have a legitimate baby." "You'll let me divorce you with no adultery charges?" "Yep." With a big smile, Kay asked, "Who do I have to sleep with?" "My boss, John. In fact, I need you and both your sisters to sleep with him in a hotel room tonight. Is that doable?" "We can't get there by tonight. How about tomorrow?" "No, it has to be tonight. He just dumped his girlfriend today and will be looking for someone new." "Yeah, okay, but who will watch the kids?" "Sasha and I will." Kay started to say something about Sasha, but trailed off when I pulled an expensive new purse from under the table. "I have a present for you." I set the purse on the table and pointed at the black buttons. "These are cameras on each side of the purse. Just make sure there is nothing between the purse and the action." Not sure I feel comfortable being taped. "I have weeks of video of you with different guys. The one with Ron and Mark was over 2 hours. I have days of video of you and Cheryl in our bed. Don't tell me you're shy now." With a sad look, she asked, "You have videos of Ron, Mark, and me? Of me and Cheryl?" "Yup, and many more. If you do this, I will destroy all the recordings." "Okay, let's do this." Kay called her sisters, explained what they were going to do and why. Both sisters were over with their kids in less than 20 minutes. All 3 wore the smallest dresses I had ever seen them wear. I didn't even know Kay owned one that small. But hey, when you offer free babysitting, free drinks, a free hotel suite, and a new partner, how else are they going to react? Once Sasha and I were alone with the 3 sisters on the front porch, I showed them a picture of John and said, "I want you to try and wear him out." By the smiles on their faces, I knew they would try their best. After the 3 left, Sasha and I fed the kids and put them in front of the TV. We then went to the office to make sure the 3 didn't mess this up. I started to explain to Sasha what I had planned, but she waved her hand and said, "Don't bother. From what I just heard and what I know about John, They both deserve everything they are about to get. Sasha had a cute twinkle in her eyes. She said the girls got to the lounge ahead of John. I told Kay to leave her purse on the table so I could see from the cameras. John usually had a drink at the lounge after work. John did show up, but with Nancy from work. Damn it! Sasha swore when she saw Nancy. Damn, that bitch didn't waste a moment, did she? Sasha took a picture of John and Nancy at the bar, making it look like she was inside. Sasha then called a number. Hey, Glenn, I'm at the lounge and I just saw your girlfriend walk in with John. Are you two not dating anymore? She sent the pic to Glenn. We could hear yelling on the other end. Within seconds, Nancy answered her phone, looked sick, and ran out crying. John, confused, started to leave, but Kay yelled, "Forget her!" across the bar. Everyone, including John, looked at her and then at her two sisters. John smiled and strolled over to their table. Soon, he and the sisters were on their way to a suite in the hotel next door. All three sisters quickly undressed. John stood frozen, watching. Katie said, "Aren't you going to join us?" John moved quickly, stripping off his clothes. They pulled him onto the bed, smothering him. It was quite a scene. It had only been about 25 minutes of sex, and I was really turned on. I looked at Sasha, who was flushed. I apologized and said I could watch it later alone. Sasha looked at me, then ran out of the room. I thought I had offended her. I heard her running through the house, then stopping. Just as I was about to get up to talk to her, she came back, locked the office door, and said, "The kids are all asleep. I need you to be with me." After 2 years without sex, I wasn't going to say no, especially to Sasha. A few minutes later, we resumed watching the video. "I think they really are going to wear him out," I said. "Nice way to go. Usually John is a one-and-done guy. I saw Kay give him 2 Viagra in the bar. I wonder if he took both." From what we saw, he probably did. Sasha and I went to my guest room, showered, and were together again. I insisted that Sasha stay with me in the guest room. We set the alarm to wake up before the kids. We didn't want any early morning drama. Before the kids woke up, I fast-forwarded through the tape until they stopped. They were with John for over 3 hours. During fast-forward, I could see they used John like a human toy. His smile showed he didn't mind. Sasha thought she should leave, but I told her no. We still had a couple of hours. Sasha made breakfast for all the kids. They were amazed. She left around 9 to go home for a change of clothes. Around 11, Kay and her sisters came home, exhausted but smiling. John looked like an old man coming into his house. I gave Kay more instructions and had her call John to ask for a repeat. John said yes, but only 1 Viagra this time. That night, the 3 sisters went straight to the suite and started drinking. 30 minutes later, John knocked on the door and was let in. Kay gave him 2 Viagra, but John only took 1. After 10 minutes, there was a knock on the door. Kathy opened it and Ron and Mark walked in. They shook John's hand and kissed all the women. Ron and Mark took a Viagra each. As soon as they undressed, I stopped watching and went to bed. I didn't want to watch without Sasha. She had clients to visit in the morning. I would watch the tape later. The next morning, Sasha was out at a client site. The sisters were still at the hotel and the kids were off to school. I watched the tape, mostly fast-forwarding. It looked like a bad European B-grade movie from the 70s. I got what I needed. I rented an apartment downtown across the street from John's office. I paid for a maid to clean it daily and keep it stocked with food and water. I had all 3 sisters meet John there every day after work as long as he would let them. John wanted a day of rest after a few days. To keep Katie and Kathy going, I told them they could have 10% of the $20,000 a month when Kay was divorced and had the baby. Kay agreed when I pointed out they would mooch off her anyway. Paying them a set amount would limit what they expected. Without them, there would be no divorce. I sent some highlights of John's activities to his wife, blacking out everyone's faces except John's. After John's wife received the video, I thought my plan wouldn't work. John's wife was a tall, thin woman with a very hot body. She was the only daughter of a local mob boss. When John got home, she pulled him into the bedroom, made him take his clothes off, and hog-tied him to the bed. He looked like he was reaching back to grab his feet. John's wife began playing the video in front of John on the big TV while he apologized. She pulled out a giant paddle. The sound of wood hitting John's butt was horrifying. I enjoyed it. I realized she hadn't said a word the entire time. Then she said, "John, I am going out with my boyfriend. He got us last-minute tickets to the opera. I wanted to go too, but you were too busy. While I am gone, I want you to think about how you ruined our marriage. I will be divorcing you." She stared into his eyes, letting it sink in. "I will be somewhat fair in the settlement, but if you fight me on anything, I will send these videos to everyone you know. Nod if you understand." John nodded. She smiled and stood up. "I will not be back for a week. My boyfriend is taking me on his yacht. I will swing by tomorrow morning to get some things and verify the locks have been changed. You will never come back to this house. You will get nothing from here in the divorce. Only your clothes and your car. Never come back, or bad things will happen to you." She started walking towards the door. John, gagged, started yelling. She turned back and said, "Don't worry, honey. A couple of men will be around to escort you out. I have to run or I'll be late. Have a nice life." And she left. In the morning, two big men in black suits showed up and untied John. They didn't say anything, just stared at him through their dark sunglasses. After getting the circulation back in his hands, John started towards the bathroom. Both men reached into their jackets, pulled out large handguns, and pointed them at John's head. John, realizing the seriousness, quickly put on his dirty clothes. Once dressed, the men put their guns away and herded John to the front door. They waited until John drove away in his car. John's wife filed for divorce that same day. John was upset, but the sisters kept him busy. In fact, John started staying at the apartment, making it easier for the sisters to control him. When they saw his bruises, they laughed at him. Katie then screamed, "How dare you play with someone else without my permission?" She handcuffed him to a love seat and spanked him until he cried. John's wife froze all their accounts and assets for the divorce. John soon ran out of cash to pay his employees. He lost 25% of his business to a new competitor, so his cash flow was down. I called 3 key people at John's company and asked if they wanted to work for me. None said yes, but I left it open. A few days later, John went by his house and tried to get into the garage, but it was locked. I sent him a text saying, "I told you, only your clothes and car." He thought his wife was behind the leaked video. I anonymously sent John's all-mail review with Ron and Mark to a competitor's salesman. Within a week, everyone who knew John's company had seen the video. The 3 key people called and asked if the offer was still open. I hired all 3. With John's reputation ruined, his company struggling, and his divorce pending, I managed to pick up 90% of his customers in the next 60 days, which was when John's divorce was finalized. John's company closed 2 days later, and I became the sole owner of a thriving company. I had a divorce to settle. I filed for an uncontested divorce and expedited everything. I gave Kay the house. She didn't know I had taken a second mortgage on it to fund my startup. I gave her half of our shared account, which was $8,000, and her car. I kept my company. I told her it wasn't worth anything on paper yet, but I could change the divorce papers to adultery. She shut up, signed the papers, and smiled, thinking $20,000 a month was coming her way. We divorced 60 days later. I was a free man. The day after our divorce, Kay married the mechanic. She thought she would be rich and wanted her big meat every night. Kay spent all the money I gave her, $8,000 from the trust fund deposit for 2 months and $20,000 from her parents on her wedding. She thought she would be rich soon and could pay her parents back. She got pregnant shortly before, during, or after the wedding. People heard them in the back of the church before the ceremony and in the limo to the airport. 3 months after the wedding, Kay and her mom went to see the trust fund lawyers. They wanted to know when the $20,000 a month would start and why the $4,000 hadn't been deposited yet. The lawyer told them the funds had been withdrawn. Another candidate had met the requirements and was receiving the money. The police had to be called due to the damage they caused in the office. Weeks later, Kay came to my house in a short red dress with no underwear. I made her stay on the front porch. She said she was going to reopen our divorce settlement because she got less than she wanted. I told her I wasn't a piggy bank. It had been 4 months since the divorce was final. The judge's decree was final, and she had already remarried. She then said we could get back together. She lifted her dress, revealing her pregnant belly, and asked if I missed her. I smiled and pulled out my camera, taking a picture of her. She even smiled and posed. Then I asked, "Won't your new husband love to see this picture with his wedding ring on your finger?" I then slammed the door shut. She screamed and beat on the door for a few minutes, then started crying and begged me not to send the photo. I told her I wouldn't send it if she went away and never came back. Her last words were, "I'm sorry I ruined our beautiful marriage. I wish you had been enough for me." Good enough for her? Our beautiful marriage? Someone was the captain of the SS Delusional, and Davy Jones had welcomed it many years ago. Eventually, I gave up my hobby completely, which included destroying all the recordings. John disappeared after his company closed. Seriously gone. The last location his phone gave was somewhere in San Francisco, in the Castro district. John's wife traded up. The guy she remarried was 5 years younger than John, but still older than her, and was the CEO of a growing company. He seemed to care for her, but definitely wanted her blue blood. They even had 3 kids together. My 2 kids graduated from high school and got dead-end jobs. No surprise, they both asked me to hire them. I told them to become programmers and then give me a call. Ron and Mark fared pretty well. Their little video with John got them some notoriety, and they became movie stars, if you know what I mean. They also became friends with a successful business owner who owned a chain of stores. The guy was older and thinking of retiring, but had no kids to leave it to. Katie ended up better. Cheryl divorced her husband. I had nothing to do with it. It was a mutual agreement, and Katie and Cheryl got married. They seemed really happy together. I felt sorry for any guy who was stupid enough to go home with those two. Kay's parents lost their last property, their house. They used it as collateral for Kay's marriage. When the trust fund money fell through, they sold it. They got divorced and split what they had left. My ex-father-in-law moved in with his brother and Miss Ainsley. The niece moved in shortly afterward. My ex-mother-in-law moved into a state-owned retirement community. She was so troublesome that they kept her on happy pills all the time, and she mostly just mumbles and smiles. Kay stayed married for about a year. She lost the house, and when the little equity she got from it dried up, the mechanic left her. Kay works as a waitress and lives in a trailer with her sick dog, raising the mechanic's kid. She also kept a pair of the monster jackhammers from the apartment and used them frequently. As for the people who cheated with my wife, her sisters, and my ex-mother-in-law, did you think I was going to let them off the hook just because I promised Kay? Right after Kay lost her trust money, I sent a copy of all the videos of anyone cheating to their spouses and relatives. I used Kay's personal email account to send all the emails with the incriminating videos and voice recordings. I sent over 300 emails. I had also cloned Kay's phone. She also sent everything via text. Just to be sure, Kay sent me a very angry text. "You told me you would destroy all the recordings. You promised." I texted back, "Thank you for making truthfulness no longer a necessary part of our marital relationship. It really made getting what I wanted so much easier." She never responded. As for divorces, all you have to do is find one cheater, and you can find all the cheating husbands. And I had 3 of them. Most of the guys' phones I got into. The sisters all had a thing for undressing on their way to the bedroom. The mechanic caused 8 men to divorce their wives. He loved to text derogatory things about the husbands to the wives. The wives never disagreed. He had to move to find a job and stop getting randomly beaten up. Katie, other than with her uncle and aunt, mostly messed around with single women, so she didn't directly cause any divorces. Kathy screwed many guys while I had my hobby. Most of the guys, I had no clue who they were. Of the men I did know, subtracting Kay's overlap, Kathy caused 10 divorces with 0 reconciles. No reconciles because the wives lost all respect for their husbands. If they sank low enough to be with Kathy. My mother-in-law did a few guys. Subtracting Kay's overlap, she caused only 1 divorce. As for Kay, her videos caused 13 divorces and 2 reconciles due to her cheating. These only include direct divorces. When some of the men owned up, they implicated other women who ended up getting divorced. When the hurt wives confronted the other cheating wives, I think there were 4 or 5 subsequent divorces. There were at least a dozen arrests due to assaults. Thankfully, no one died that I know of. I like people to enjoy the consequences of their actions. The mechanic ended up with a permanently damaged tool, thanks to Katie and Cheryl. I heard they ruptured some major blood vessels while in action. Ouch. The mechanic's nickname is now Lefty because his tool is permanently bent in the middle and points to the left, 90 degrees left. Katie mentioned Lefty had said something disrespectful about one of Cheryl's daughters while he was with Cheryl. Bad move. Lefty tried to press charges, but having your tool broken while inside someone is hard to describe as assault. Katie said the female detective couldn't stop giggling, and the male detective looked amazed. Katie described how Cheryl had broken his tool without using her hands. I never could get a clear picture in my head of how she did it. I think my brain was blocking me from ever hearing about such a horrible thing. As for Lefty's ex-wife, I invited her to a coffee shop to apologize for her getting blamed for my sisters-in-law's divorces. She said breaking my mother-in-law's nose was the highlight of her year. She joked, "See if you can get her upset enough to slap me again. I need more therapy." I asked her if she was dating. After looking me up and down, she said, "Maybe." I told her I was spoken for, but my next-door neighbor had just gotten divorced. She waved me off like, "Not another one." Lefty's ex is a statuesque 5'10" blonde with an athletic figure, a skinnier version of Cheryl. I explained that my neighbor found out his wife was cheating, and they amicably divorced. She sat silently. I continued, "He and his ex-wife found out they were both sterile but wanted to have kids. And since you have 2 babies looking for a dad," she smiled slightly. I added, "He owns his house outright, pays no alimony, and makes over 6 figures. She had a big smile by now. "He lives next door to me and hasn't gone on a single date since the divorce. Finding out his wife was cheating was a huge blow to his ego. Did I mention he's 6'2" and used to play rugby for fun?" She leaned forward quickly and slapped my leg. "Not so loud. Those 2 women behind you don't have rings? Yes, I want a date with him." Whispering back, I said, "Come by my house Saturday. I already invited him over for a barbecue. Bring both kids. They can swim in my pool. Wear a high-cut one-piece. He likes women with long, athletic legs." Afterwards, she ran to her car, eager to get home and start getting ready for Saturday, which was 3 days away. After the afternoon party on Saturday, Lefty's ex-wife and kids spent the night at his house. They never left. They invited us to their wedding 6 months later. Sasha looked so cute in a bridesmaid gown, 7 months pregnant. As for me, the business is doing very well. Sasha, before she retired, reeled in 3 major clients, which guaranteed the company's solvency. I quickly married Sasha. I had to. I keep getting her pregnant. I can't help it. She is always glowing. She is carrying our 4th right now. We are both trying to catch up for lost time. We moved near my parents to our own beachfront property. It's warm 300+ days a year. A brutal winter day is when it gets down to 45 degrees. We live in a small house, which is fine because we spend most of our time out on the large back deck. We have 3 huge dogs who sleep with the kids every night. I taught them to bark and growl when I show them a picture of my ex-wife, just in case she ever comes sniffing around for money. Sadly, one of the vets in town has an assistant who looks very similar to my ex-wife. She has to hide until my dogs are out of the building. The first time we visited, they cornered her in the front lobby. Before we married, I showed Sasha all of my little hobby. She knew it was a warning, but she laughed and told me she had nothing to worry about. The best dancer in the world. I know you figured it out already. The trust was in my ex-wife's uncle's name only as the sole executor. I was allowed to close the trust. I needed my money back to start my new life. Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.